Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we have the second Republican to enter into the 2026 Georgia Senate race versus Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff. Georgia Insurance Commissioner John King has officially entered the race. King now joins Representative Buddy Carter as the only two candidates in the race so far for the GOP primary, following the news that Governor Brian Kemp and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene are not going to be running for this race. A little background information on King is that he served in the United States Army National Guard and later became an officer with the Atlanta Police Department and Doraville Police Department. Doraville promoted King to its chief of police, a role that he served for 17 years. Kemp appointed King as Georgia's insurance commissioner when former Commissioner Jim Beck was removed in 2019. He won re-election in 2022, becoming the first Hispanic statewide elected official in Georgia history. On his campaign website, King lists border security, immigration, and national security among his top issues. A quote from his website says, "I've served in combat zones around the world, been shot in the line of duty, and arrested and deported criminals here illegally. I'm running for the U.S. Senate to give President Trump reinforcements from a lawman and a soldier who knows how to get things done." Now, the 2026 U.S. Senate race in Georgia, Democrat Jon Ossoff, the incumbent U.S. Senator, will be facing off against a Republican. Who that is as of yet, we don't know, but Buddy Carter and John King are now both officially running. At this point in time, there are four other candidates who have publicly expressed interest. Rick Allen, a U.S. rep from Georgia's 12th Congressional District, Mike Collins, a U.S. rep from Georgia's 10th District, Tyler Harper, Georgia's Agriculture Commissioner, and Rich McCormick, U.S. rep from Georgia's 7th District. We do know that Andrew Clyde, a U.S. rep from Georgia's 9th District, is also officially ruled out running since the last time I did a video on this race. Four other Republicans who could potentially run for this race include Doug Collins, former U.S. representative from Georgia and candidate for Senate, Brian Jack, U.S. rep from Georgia's 3rd District, and former U.S. Senator Kelly Loeffler, who lost to Raphael Warnock in the Senate election in 2020. The only endorsement that's been made that's been notable so far is Eric Johnson, a state senator who's endorsed Buddy Carter. The only hypothetical poll we have to go off of that includes John King was one poll which showed Marjorie Taylor Greene running, where King only got 2% of the vote. But in the first part of the poll where Greene was not running, it had Mike Collins leading at 46%, Buddy Carter was in second place with 23%, Rich McCormick was in third place with 21%, and then John King was in fourth place at 11%. So at least compared to the other Republicans, it seems John King's name recognition is either very low or not a lot of Republicans have heard from him, because he's only starting out in the low 10% or so, while other Republican opponents are starting in the 20s, and in Collins' case, in the 40s. As for the general election, it remains unchanged right now. Inside, Cook Politico and Sabato Crystal Ball all have the race listed as a toss-up seat or a battleground seat. As for the polling that's been done so far, right now the only two running, Jon Ossoff versus Buddy Carter. The Tyson Group poll had Ossoff leading by 8 points. WPA had Ossoff leading by about 13. Large amounts of undecided votes still remaining in this race, but Ossoff clearly has a lead to begin. There's been two polls done between Ossoff and John King. That Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll that showed Ossoff at 51%, King at 38%, with 11% undecided. Even if King were to win all the undecided remaining vote, that 11%, that would get him up to 49%. Ossoff still has over 50% and would win in this matchup. A poll from WPA from back in January showed Ossoff leading King 47-31, a 16-point spread with 22 points undecided at this time. This race is very early, and a lot of these Republican candidates are not super well known. So these margins that Ossoff has right now are certainly going to narrow come Election Day. That's just the way Senate races in competitive states work. Ossoff's not going to win by 15 points, but it is worth noting that the only two Republicans running right now, both of which are not breaking 40% of the vote yet at this time, while Ossoff is already above 45% and nearing about 47% in most of the polls, 51% in this poll. As for some recent election results in Georgia, we can look at the presidential race, which voted for Donald Trump by 2.2% versus Kamala Harris in a very, very close election. We could see in 2020 it voted for Joe Biden by 0.24%, 2016 it voted for Trump by 5.1%. The Senate races in Georgia have been about equally as close, where in 2022, the Democrat Raphael Warnock won re-election against Republican Herschel Walker by 2.8%. 2020, Ossoff and Walker first won their terms. Ossoff won by 1.2% against David Perdue. Warnock won against Loeffler by 2.1%. Well, we're going to compare the margins here just really quickly between 2022 in 2024 and showed the state of Georgia actually got 0.72% more Democratic from 2020 to 2022 for Warnock compared to the 2020 numbers. But it is certainly worth interesting as well. We'll look at the presidential race and compare it as well. From 2024 to 2020, Georgia did get 2.4% more Republican, but there were some counties that did get even more Democratic as well. Fulton County, this is where the city of Atlanta is, did get more Republican, but look at its surrounding counties: Douglas, Paulding, Cobb, Cherokee, Forsyth. We have Fayette, Coweta, Henry. These areas did still continue to go to the Democratic side. So even though a lot of Georgia did trend to the Republican side, a lot of areas in the surrounding Atlanta, surrounding Fulton County, DeKalb County, and Gwinnett County, some of the areas surrounding it did continue to narrowly trend to the Democratic side. And only about a 2 to 3 point trend in these areas isn't enough to really put Georgia away and say the Democrats couldn't win it, both at the presidential level in 2028, but certainly in the Senate level in 2026 as well. Looking at the Senate side of things, we can see that Jon Ossoff, we're going to compare some numbers very, very briefly here in the state of Georgia. Just look at some of the percentages here. Harris won DeKalb County, or won Fulton County, by 44.9%. Let's take a look at what Jon Ossoff did in 2020. See, as we can see here, Fulton County went 71.7 to 28.3. Whereas for Trump, it went 71.8 to 27.03. We can see that Trump improved a lot of the margins for the Republican direction of what David Perdue got, surrounding, for instance, in Fulton County, DeKalb County, Gwinnett, Henry, Rockdale, and Douglas. We can see that Ossoff, when he won back in 2020, he did very well in Fulton County, in Clayton County, DeKalb, Gwinnett, and these surrounding areas as well. As for the 2026 Senate map at this time, I currently have 51 Senate seats favored for the Republicans, 45 favored for the Democrats, with 4 Senate seats being toss-up at this time: Maine, Michigan, North Carolina, and the mentioned state of Georgia. Right now, Brian Kemp deciding not to run for this race, I think, does significantly help the Democrats' chances at winning. And the polls, again, early polls so far in the race show Jon Ossoff with a more than 5% lead, even more than a 10% lead in some instances. But right now, I do expect the election to end up looking like right now, Jon Ossoff winning by a lean Democratic margin, meaning more than 1% of the vote, but under 5% of the vote. The race will narrow once the Republican nominee is decided, and then the race becomes very close into the general election. It's possible Ossoff, if the Democrats do amazing in 2026, could win by more than 5 points, but the Republicans, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, was the only Republican that was going to lose by more than 5 points. I don't think that's going to happen now. Now it's going to be a very close race, but I do think Jon Ossoff starts out as the early favorite to win this race and win re-election, in large part due to the fact the Republicans were not able to land a top-tier candidate, and Ossoff's in a strong position with his fundraising so far to put up a very competitive fight, and I think he'll narrowly win as of now. Make sure to leave a comment below to tell me your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.